derealization. I think I had it the worst of everyone who's ever had it. I think I had it the worst. And I remember sitting there looking at everyone and I'm like, what is going on? This is not real. And I would like want to touch things because I'm like, I can't be that I feel like I'm in a dream, that I wasn't in real life at the moment, or in like a video game. I was feeling completely cut off from the world. Full blown derealization every single day, every waking minute of the day. Like these lines on my eyes here on the sides, it's not from laughing, it's from that 18 months of crying nonstop.
When you recover from DPDR, can you really get back to normal?
Yes. It's not forever. You're gonna recover. It is possible.
Hey everyone, I'm Sean O'Connor, creator of the Depersonalization Manual, and today I'm speaking with Anke Coetzer, 26 years old from South Africa. Anke's experience with depersonalization derealization disorder began completely out of the blue. As she wrote to me, it just happened one random Friday evening, and from that moment on, the symptoms didn't go away. What followed was a year and a half struggle with chronic DPDR, in particular intense derealization, where her entire sense of reality felt like it was changed. Anke's symptoms included feeling completely detached from reality, as if the world around her wasn't real, everything looking warped, strange, and unfamiliar, and the overwhelming sense of living in a dream, not even her own, but like she was stuck in someone else's dream. Anke has described it as one of the most intense forms of derealization imaginable, where reality itself just didn't feel right anymore. However, she has since made a complete recovery. She wrote to me recently and said, I bought your DP manual back when I was struggling with the worst DPDR in the world, but I've since recovered and would like to share my story. And today, she's doing exactly that, sharing what her experience was like and how she got through 18 months of severe derealization and what life feels like now that she's fully recovered. Anke, you're very welcome to the channel. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Sean. This is so crazy to think that I'm sitting on this side, because I used to watch your videos and even go to sleep on them because they were like very soothing for me. So I'd listen to everything and I would sleep. And now I really actually, if you would have told me that in 2024 I would be the person sharing my story, I would be like, there's no way. There's no way.
I'm so happy that the material was helpful, Anke, and you're very welcome to the channel. Anke, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm 26 years old. I come from South Africa. I feel like I have to say that my, what do you call it, native tongue isn't English. So if you find me stuttering a bit, it's because I'm actually Afrikaans, which is the one of the languages in South Africa. We have 11 official languages, so it's like very nice and diverse. I know, crazy. I'm a pharmacist, qualified in 2025. So last year I qualified. I am currently working on some pharmacy related things. I don't really have a full-time job. I'm doing some locum work in pharmacy. I love singing, writing songs, making music, and yeah, I think that's about it.
Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with DPDR and how did it start for you?
Oh my goodness. It was the worst experience of my life. And I've we've been held hostage in our house. They like broke into our house when I was a little younger, and I feel like DPDR was worse than that for me. Um, so basically, I was in studio on a Friday, and then everything was fine. Nothing weird. I don't really have a past of like experiencing dealing with anxiety, and so maybe a little bit, but just like a normal amount. Like before a test or before something is importance happening in your life, then I would like be a little bit anxious, but like normal levels. And I remember I was driving home from studio, and I felt like the road, I didn't recognize the road home. And I'm like, this is very weird because I don't know. It's very hard to explain how I experienced it, but yeah, you understand. So I got home and I remember I wanted to eat something. And as I was like taking the food, I'm like, what? Why are we eating? Then I had like a tiny existential crisis, like, why do we eat food? Like, what is, I just went down a whole spiral and it made no sense because I've never thought that way in my life before. And I remember I went to bed that night and I told my mom, I'm like, I really don't feel okay. Like something feels weird. But I think I'm just a bit tired from being in studio all day and driving up and down. Because I drove, I think it was like 3 hours drive from the studio to my house and back. So I was just like, I'm just tired, so I need to get some sleep and then I'll be fine. And then the next day I woke up and it was like this thing on my chest that I was feeling something is not right. Everything looks funny. My mom, like her face looks funny. My dad, everything is just, I remember I was making myself coffee and I'm looking at the milk and I'm like, this is such a weird shape. The milk, the box, like the box of milk is such a weird shape. And long story short, I started getting anxiety because of experiencing the DPDR, or what I thought was, I don't know what I knew, I didn't know what it was, but obviously now that I'm educated, I know that I didn't. It was because of like anxiety that I got those symptoms. It's just symptoms of anxiety. But then I started getting other physical symptoms because I think we even went to visit my cousins and we were having coffee. And I remember sitting there looking at everyone, and I'm like, what is going on? This is not real. And I would like want to touch things because I'm like, I can't be that I feel like I'm in a dream. And I would I started Googling symptoms and nothing made sense. I didn't know what it was. I was thinking maybe I just have like severe case of brain fog. Nonetheless, I went on with my week the next week. I'm still experiencing full blown derealization without knowing what it was. And then it really got to me. I got so incredibly scared. I um I remember vividly there was this one, I did a photo shoot. I was modeling for like a bridal wedding situation, and I, in general, am someone who can really handle my emotions quite well. I'm not someone, I've always, whenever someone told me they got panic attacks, I would be like, man, just go for a little jog, get a bit of sunlight. It's not that serious. You'll feel better. I didn't believe in like anxiety and panic attacks because I'm like, no, because if you have a good diet and you exercise enough and you have a good community around you and you're doing things that stimulates you, how can you get anxiety or depression? It makes no sense. And I remember the first ever panic attack that I got was just after I did the shoot and I was still feeling, while we were at the photo shoot, I was feeling so weird and my heart was racing. I remember my heart rate was like 120 beats per minute constantly. And obviously now I'm anxious, so I'm checking my watch the whole time to see what's my heart rate. And I remember driving back home and I started getting such a bad panic attack. I had to pull over and my mom and dad had to come fetch me because I couldn't see. I felt like I couldn't see. I had such blurry vision.
If you're enjoying Anke's DPDR recovery story and thinking, I'm finally ready for my recovery story, the good news is that you can start today and you don't have to figure it out alone. The exact step-by-step process that Anke used to recover is in the DP manual, my complete depersonalization and derealization recovery program with over 10 hours of content that goes far deeper than anything available on YouTube. It gives you a clear path to follow so you can finally stop the guesswork and start making real progress. You can access it instantly, there's no application process, and you won't have to pay thousands of dollars. It's the most trusted, accessible, and affordable DPDR recovery program available today. Tens of thousands of people have already used it to fully recover, and you can too. And if you'd like personal reassurance and guidance from someone who's actually been through this, I also offer private one-to-one DPDR recovery Zoom coaching sessions. So if you're finally ready to move from watching recovery stories to starting your very own today, the links are in the description. Back to the interview.
So obviously I thought it was something physiologically that was wrong with me. So I obviously insisted on my parents taking me to the ER and insisting on them giving me like an ECG. Is it called an ECG in English? The one that they do with your heart. EKG. Okay, so then they did that because I'm like, no, my heart, there's something wrong with my heart because it's pumping. Like, I wake up in the middle of the night and it would be like 130, 140. And then I went to the ER not once, not twice. I went to the doctor 3 times because I was so sure that it was something physiologically wrong and not like mentally. And I remember just crying. And if I tell you, Sean, if I tell you I cried, like these lines on my eyes here on the sides, it's not from laughing, it's from that 18 months of crying nonstop. Um, because I was so confused. And the doctor told me, no, he thinks it's anxiety. And I'm like, no, it can't be anxiety because I can't, like, what's happening with my vision? I even got an MRI because I had a brain injury in 2023 where I had like a skull fracture because of a bad fall. And I was like, maybe that's linked. I really tried I tried to figure it out as much as I possibly could to make sense of what the heck was happening. And at the end of the day, I went to a psychiatrist because I was very scared. Because I am a pharmacist, I'm very scared of taking any medications. And I was just scared that like a general practitioner is gonna put me on something and then it's just gonna be worse than not taking any medication. So I'm like, you know what? If this is really anxiety, and it can be treated maybe with medication along with other things, then I want to go to the psychiatrist. And I was hoping that the psychiatrist would give me a better answer um, for my symptoms, like a specific answer, because everyone just kept on saying anxiety, 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 and which they weren't wrong. I understand now, but it's such a specific symptom, part of anxiety that not a lot of people experience. And I was thinking I was losing my mind. I was like, what is happening with me? And yeah, at the end of the day, I didn't figure it out. Doctor didn't tell me what was going on. And they tried to put me on medication and so, but I wasn't really very compliant. Don't listen to me because as a pharmacist, you should please drink your meds. Um, but they did end up putting me on an SSRI, like one of the first line treatments, which is, I think in America or in the States, they call it Lexapro, escitalopram. I think it's a very common one. And I ended up taking that and it worked very well for me, but I still didn't have the answers. I was still getting panic attacks. I was still having full-blown derealization every single day, every waking minute of the day. I was on Reddit, I was on Google, I was trying to figure out what the heck was going on. And yeah, I feel like you asked one question and I haven't stopped talking yet, but
Not at all.
yeah.
No, it's always fascinating, and the experience of it is it feels so isolating when you're going through it, and so deeply strange as well, I think is the thing as well, when you suddenly feel like you're in a dream and you can't explain it. When you talk about going to see doctors as well, Anka, and getting the explanation that it's anxiety, and I had the exact same experience. And the most frustrating aspect of that is that it's actually correct. Like, it is actually correct, but it doesn't contain the specificity that you need to be able to give you a path forward. Because in my head, I was thinking, well, I've had anxiety before. This isn't it. Like, anxiety, I felt panicky before, like, an exam at school, but like I've never felt like I was in a dream. This has to be something different. So no matter how much people kept saying it's anxiety, anxiety, there was a part of me that was just pushing that explanation away. And as you were saying, straight onto the internet to be like, well, there has to be an answer out there. So your whole life just becomes researching this to find that one piece of information that hopefully will turn it off, you know?
No, and I think what really frustrated me was that I was so scared. I was more scared of the symptoms than what was actually happening. if that makes sense. Like, it was scary, but I didn't know why. The symptoms scared me because I didn't know, I couldn't put like a specific thing and a specific cause to it. And I remember, I was it was really like, I'll cry. I've never actually spoken about this. Only out, as I told you on when we were emailing each other. I told you I've only my mom and dad and my close family knows of this. I've never really openly spoken about it because it's one of the most. It was very traumatic because, as you say, it's very isolating, and no one that I knew, no one in my immediate circle, not even in my further circle, sorry, the English, they just got a bit mumbled. But like other friends that knows of someone has ever experienced these symptoms. So I had no one to talk to. So I was like, I think something that I also saw, when I was watching a lot of your content, I saw that a lot of other people also had the thing where they were so scared that it was something else, like another um, mental condition like schizophrenia, or I don't know what else, they like psychosis or whatever. And your brain immediately goes to that. But and that, I think that's what makes it so scary. And that's also what helped me so much when I remember I was doing another, all of these things were happening while I was on set most of the times. When I was Googling, because I had to work and then I'd get panic attacks at work. And I'm like, well, maybe if I just know what's wrong, then I'll just quickly get over it and then just go on with my life. And I remember I was sitting on set and I was Googling and I came on to your website actually. And I read, I can't remember there's like this one small passage in your, I think it's on the website, where you say something, 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 struggled with it for 2 years with. And I started crying. I'm like, 2 years? What do you mean 2 years? No, I can't. I cried. I'm like, my life is over. And my mom and dad, they didn't know what to do. They were just, I was still living in, at home that time, because I just finished studying and I went to live with my mom and dad when I had to do my internship. And shame, they didn't know what to do anymore because I was just either crying. When I opened my eyes, I was crying and I was getting panic attacks. My mom even had to like wash my hair at some point because I was too scared to be alone in the shower or the bathroom or whatever. Like, it's really ridiculous now that I think back. But in that moment, I just needed an answer. And when I read all of the symptoms of your thing and the way that you actually articulated, like, you're not going crazy, this isn't forever, these are the symptoms you might be experiencing. And I watched a YouTube video of yours and I was like, this is it. This is exactly what I'm going through. And thank the Lord I got onto your YouTube channel, because that really, really was such a big game changer in my whole journey while going through this flippin' horrible thing. So yeah, thank you so much for putting this out there. And that's also the only reason why I'm sharing my story, because 2 years ago, I thought it was the end of my life. I thought I don't know. I had no hope.
Yeah, that's what I thought too when it happened to me. I'm so glad that you found the channel, and again the material was helpful. When you look back at your at the time when this happened, was this was there anything you could point to? I mean, that doesn't necessarily have to be, but was it a particularly stressful time in your life? Was it a time of change? Was there anything that was there any other kind of buildup of anxiety that that you kind of can make sense of in retrospect?
There's a lot of things that has happened in my life, that has caused like a bit of distress and yeah, just things like that I don't necessarily have to go into. But at that specific stage in my life when I experienced the DPDR, just before that, so in South Africa, you need to do, if you want to work in the healthcare, what do you call it? Healthcare what? Healthcare
Industry.
industry, thank you. If you want to work in the healthcare industry, you have to work 1 year for the government. And during that time, you basically get placed in wherever in the country and you don't really have a say over it. And at that stage, I was engaged and I was going to get married. And then I had to suddenly move across the country. And we had to postpone our wedding, and everything was just up in the air, very chaotic. And I think maybe that underlying stress, that not only just that, I think maybe that was the immediate trigger. Other things that has happened in my life in the past, definitely have, I didn't sort any of those things out, and I think it accumulated up to this point where it was just something like a very small trigger that um triggered me into a whole state of anxiety. And so yeah, I think if I can pinpoint it to maybe one or two things, it has to be the what is the right word for unsurety? That's not a word.
Uncertainty?
Yes, thank you.
Mm.
In Afrikaans it's onsekerheid, so I wanted to direct translate it. What uncertainty, yeah. So I think it was just the whole uncertainty of where am I gonna live? My husband couldn't get a job, so he didn't have a job, and we got married without him having a job. So I was gonna be the only financial provider. So it was just a lot of things that was like normal stress, but I think it was just for my whole system where it has accumulated so much that something so small triggered it. And I think that's what was so bad, because I was actually in a good space. I thought I was in a good space, but when I think back now, I'm actually so thankful for that whole journey that happened, because it changed my heart and it changed my whole perspective on life so much. And I know it sounds very cheesy, but it really did. So I think back to you answering just the question, I think it was maybe the uncertainty of my future and the move and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. It can be an accumulation of stress that builds up over time. I mean, for a lot of people, it is something that's very difficult or traumatic, or that feels traumatic, that happens in the moment. But it can very often be an accumulation of different stresses and different elements over time that build up in the background. And individually, you feel you can deal with them, and you can deal with them. But
Mm.
at some point, that buildup gets to a place where your brain just says, "Okay, there's a lot going on here. Is Ike in danger?" Like, and if she is, will we just switch on this little alarm system, which is very helpful if you actually are in danger. But if you're on the way home from a set, or you're just planning your wedding or something, and then that feeling kicks in, then you start to think, what is going on? Why do I feel like this? This feeling of disconnection, which is useful if there's a wild animal chasing you, but not useful when you're sitting down trying to eat your dinner, and then you start looking at the food and saying, what is this food about? Why is the milk doing that? What even is milk? What is that shape it's creating? It's a very, very disconcerting experience. Hmm.
No.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm smiling a lot while telling it. I think that's also like a type of coping mechanism, because I don't really like to think about how it felt during that time. But it is it's very scary. And I don't wish it upon my worst enemy to go through that. I really don't, because it's horrible. But I yeah, I think it really takes time to figure it out. And also, like, um a lot of things in my life that has also happened prior was like my sister, oh my goodness, I love my sister. She lives in Australia now at the moment. So I'm in South Africa and she's in Australia with her husband. And she, in 2018, actually a few times, my sister struggles with epilepsy, and she got very, very bad epileptic, like, attacks. Do you call it that? Is that the right word?
Or a fit. Yeah.
A fit, thank you. So she got very bad fits, like where she would, we had to take her to the hospital a few times because she stopped breathing. Um, and that was very, very stressful. And I remember, she was a lot at the neurologist, and they were doing lots of tests on her, and her medication eventually got at the right dosages and the right regime for her body and for what her body's needs and everything was. And then finally, when it felt like, okay, thank goodness we don't have to stress every day over my sister, um, out of the blue, her appendix burst, and the doctors misdiagnosed it. So she almost died in 2018. She got septicemia, and like it was a lot of things like that, but she was fine. She's fine now. She's healthy, happy. And like we got like I've quickly said something that we were held hostage at our house when I was very small. So they broke into our house, and they stole literally everything in our house. And I don't think I never went to anyone talk about the things that happened. And because I was fine, I was coping with everything. And I think your brain is such a strange, beautiful organ. Is it an organ? It is an organ, eh? And it works very strange. So that happened maybe like 10 years ago. And then I think your brain, obviously, you remember the stuff deep down in your subconscious or something. And I think all of the things that just happened, all of the stresses, all of the things in life, it just really builds up. And then one small thing can trigger you into something like DPDR. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The thing as well you mentioned about looking for an explanation, like thinking maybe it's something to do with my heart, going to the ER, I think you said 3 times was Anka, getting an MRI, wondering if it's to do with like an old head injury. You know, we so desperately, desperately want to find an answer that will take any answer we can get. I God knows I certainly did. And
Oh my goodness. I would
yeah,
have been happy. I would have been happy if there was maybe something wrong with my heart, because at least then I had a reason. I know it sounds crazy, but I remember thinking like I'd actually be happy if there was maybe just something wrong with my whatever, because then at least I'd know what's going on. And I think for me, the biggest thing is like I said, I didn't really believe in anxiety. Not that I didn't believe in it, but I didn't think like it's something you can manage. I had no idea that anxiety could actually have like a physical effect on your body. I didn't realize that it could get that bad. And so I was kind of like just dissing the fact that anxiety could do this to me. I'm like, no ways, that can't do that. I'm not that girl. I'm not gonna do anxiety, saying I get panic attacks. But then that's what it was.
yeah. I remember going to the eye doctor, and I was convinced at one point it was something to do with my eyesight.
Same.
It had to be my
Yes.
my prescription was all over the place. Maybe it was glaucoma, maybe it was some sort of kind of brain ocular disconnection issue.
Exactly.
Uh, there was nothing wrong. My eyesight was, I mean, aside from needing glasses or contacts, my eyesight was perfect. And I was disappointed. I was disappointed
Yes.
that they couldn't find something, because now I'm back to square one. Now I'm back to, well, I now it's obviously not my eyes, like, so I'm I remember thinking like, and this is, I mean, it feels like such a dark thing to say, like, but thinking if it was cancer, if it was something terrible, like, at least I'd have a path. At least I'd have
No, what
a
to do.
guide. Yeah, at least, like, a doctor would then say to me, "Okay, well, look, you need to come back in next week, then we'll see you every 3 weeks for the next 2 years or whatever, and we'll see what we can do." But, like, at least that would have been something, because for me, I was just I felt like I had the rug pulled out from under me. I was lying on the ground. Nobody could help me. I couldn't help myself. I had no explanation. There wasn't even a word to describe what I was going through as far as I could see, and I was unable to function. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. Like, forget about traveling, forget about relationships, forget about pursuing a creative life. It's all gone. And if I had had some sort of diagnosis, at least it would have been something to walk towards. That was deeply
Yes.
frustrating. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have been happy, like you said, if it was cancer, it's fine. And it's sad, but I would have been happy if maybe it was that injury that I had in my brain that actually did something that left some damage or whatever. I would have been happy with an answer like that, because it just would make sense. And it's so sad to think it's it's so sad to think that the feeling is so intense that you'd rather be happy with something that's actually way worse than just normal anxiety that you can treat and you can recover from, where if it was really was like a heart problem or a brain injury or whatever, it wouldn't have been so easy to just like work through it. Um, and yeah, but it's just I just remember watching all of your listening to your audiobook, and I bought the book, and I am so happy that I did, because I would listen to the audiobook, and I'd listen to it when I wake up, I'd listen to it when I go to sleep, whenever I was sleeping all the time as well. I think I was so tired from, like, I know a lot of people say that they struggle to sleep. I was the complete opposite. I felt so fatigued 24/7. I was sleeping the whole day. I could take 3 naps during the day, and I would still go to bed at 8 o'clock that night. Um, but yeah, so I think when I just heard someone explaining it exactly like I was experiencing it, but I always had this. I was praying a lot because I'm very religious. And then I was praying to the Lord, and I was just like, please, I will do anything, but please just let this go away. Tomorrow morning when I open my eyes, let it go away. And it never did. It never worked that way. It was a whole process and a journey. And I think I think I'm gonna stop there, because I feel like you maybe wanna ask a different question, and then I'm gonna answer a bit in a different way as well.
That's quite all right, Anka. Something that did come to mind when you were speaking was the when you mentioned, I didn't believe in anxiety, and I would have had a very similar mindset. I always would have thought, well, look, I understand anxiety is a thing, but it can always be avoided with, the proper mindset, good diet, good
Communication.
company, good communication, doing all the things. And my God, when it hit me, it was just like, no, I mean, none of it mattered. None of that mattered. And it really gave me a strong sense of humility, and also and has since given me a great sense of like compassion for people who go through these things, or depression, or because
Definitely.
because it doesn't, I mean, to a great degree, of course, these things are affected by your lifestyle. But I mean, a panic attack can happen to anybody at any time, regardless of your of your lifestyle, or the best intentions. And when you do, and especially when it happens first and you don't know what's going on, and then something like DPDR hits you in the same way that like agoraphobia hits you, or social anxiety disorder can hit people, it is it feels like the basic kind of structure of your ability to interact with life is now gone. And you kind
Mm.
of and I felt like I was having to start from scratch. It was a really, really humbling experience.
Oh, the
But I'm also
most
very glad I
humbling.
went through it. Yeah, please.
Yeah. I know. That thing where you're saying you're also glad that you went through it. I remember while I was going through it, and I was reading all of the comments on the YouTube channels and reading the stuff on Reddit, and everyone, oh, some people just say that no, it never went away, and that would put me in such a spiral. Because I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't want to be that one person. Because what if I am also that one person that just can't be cured? Mine is different. And I promise you, if you think that's you, that's 100% not you. I think everyone feels that, like, oh no, mine is different. Mine can't be cured, and mine is no, no, no. But you need to stop like taking it and saying, no, that's yours. It's not yours. It's just something that's happening to you. So I think the less you give it power over your life as well, really helps. But you actually said something now, and I completely went in my own direction. I wanted to add to something that you were saying. What did you say again, Mos?
About having a sense of humility after the
Yes, that's
experience.
and yeah,
Mm.
that's actually what I wanted to talk about. I'm interviewing myself now. It looks like I'm answering
Not
questions
at
you
all.
don't even
Listen,
ask.
people are here to hear your story, so go for it.
Okay, so you said that it was a very humbling experience for you, and it was one of the best humbling experiences for me as well, because like I said, I didn't really believe in anxiety and depression. Not that I didn't believe in it, but I didn't really understand, or I had absolutely no sympathy with it. And my sister actually struggled a lot with bad, bad depression. And I would always get so mad at her. And oh my goodness, I'm gonna cry now. But I would get so mad at her because I would think like, why don't you just get out of bed and just go for a jog and tan in the sun, get some vitamin D, eat healthy, then you'll feel better. And actually, since when that happened, when the whole derealization DPDR thing happened with me, our relationship for the first time, my sister and my relationship for the first time actually healed because I could for once understand what she went through. And I had so much empathy, and it completely changed how I felt about how she dealt with things. And also she's in such a good place now, where she is no longer struggling with depression like she did. And I think that's also something that I want to talk about. Like, depression is also something very real. We see it on a daily basis at the hospitals, working like people struggle with depression and anxiety. It's so common, nothing to be ashamed of. Um, but it's important to have grace with anyone who is going through it, and it's also something that it is not necessarily going to be um, so bad, so excruciating all the time. There's gonna be, like, I think whenever you heal, it's not like a straight line upwards. It's a bit ups, bit downs, bit ups, bit downs, bit ups, bit downs. Um, and I think me going through that whole process and the whole journey of dealing with something that is so difficult to deal with gave me a lot of empathy for her. And yeah, my relationship with my sister has basically healed because of it. And it's crazy to say, it was a very not nice experience. I want to say like a curse word, but I won't curse. It was a very bad experience, but it had such a beautiful outcome for my sister and my relationship.
That's great. And what better way to make sense of and to integrate an experience like this than to have it improve or heal an existing relationship. I mean,
Mm.
it's a very, very positive takeaway. Um, just to rewind a little bit, Angus, you've mentioned a few of the symptoms that you were experiencing. You talked about, when you couldn't recognize the road, the feeling of like not being able to eat the food or the shape of the milk, that kind of stuff. And I know I mentioned at the start of the interview the feeling of being in a dream, which is something that I experienced too. Can you just tell us a bit more about those symptoms and which ones were particularly difficult for you?
It's so difficult to only say one because it felt like the feeling I was in a dream, that I wasn't in real life at the moment or in like a video game, or it was just that feeling where I was feeling completely cut off from the world. And I think that was the worst thing because I felt like I was there, but I wasn't there. I was seeing stuff, but the things I was seeing wasn't the things that I remember seeing like a year ago. And I would cry because I remember, like, am I going to see things like this now for the rest of my life? I had very blurry vision, which was weird. And this is one specific symptom that I remember I was looking up online, and I couldn't find anyone saying that they had this specific symptom. I was scared of, or I like got very anxious when I looked at the sky because the sky felt very big. I don't know if I don't know if you've heard anyone saying that, but
Mm.
that freaked me out. I'm like, what the heck? We're on a It's so stupid if I think about it now, but the sky would freak me out. Like, going outside would freak me out, which is so weird because I love the outdoors. But yeah, then I remember I'd prefer being inside and then occupying myself with like my phone or watching television. There was even a point where I couldn't watch television because that was also like the sound and the visuals, it was just like freaking me out. Everything was weird. Nothing gave me a sense of, nothing made me calm, nothing made me relaxed. Nothing made me happy. It was so difficult. But yeah, I would say my visual symptoms was definitely the worst. I never experienced the depersonalization, where I didn't feel like myself. I never had that, but I had the derealization. I think I had it the worst of everyone who's ever had it. I think I had it the worst because I didn't even drive around anymore. I didn't, oh, nothing you can think of that I could have done. I would cry whenever I get in a car and we had to drive somewhere because it felt too big. The world felt too big for me and the sky felt too big. And I remember that was like the one thing I was Googling. I'm like, who's experiencing this? Because this is making no sense to me. And yeah, another one thing that I also remember, I think it was I would like turn my neck and I would be very aware of my head, like the size of my head on my, I don't know, it's just like very weird symptoms that makes no sense. Um, and all at the same time. And then I would just go to sleep because I can't cope with it. Yeah.
You know, those types of symptoms, yeah, you're so right. When you're going through them, they feel absolutely bizarre. It's just none of them seem to make a scratch of sense and seem to be happening for any reason. And then when you recover and you look back on it and you realize that it makes complete sense, you know,
Mm.
like the sky feeling big is basically when you're in fight or flight response, your pupils dilate to let in as much information as possible, which is very helpful if you're walking through a forest at night and you might be in danger, which is what it's
Mm.
for. You're hyper aware of what's happening in your peripheral vision, and you're hyper aware of movement as well. So again, very useful if it's dark, you need to spot something. But then when you're you're driving down the road in South Africa and you look out the front window and it's a beautiful, bright, sunshiny day, and it's like it feels like it's way too big. It's literally too much information, and your brain is kind of is absolutely overwhelmed by it. Um, the thing of like hyper awareness of your body, again, it's just a hyper awareness of your body and of your environment, which like very useful if you were thought you were going to be bitten by a snake, for example. You'd be hyper aware of what's
Oh,
happening in your body. But if you know you're perfectly safe and as you're not in any environmental danger,
beautiful.
then that kind of hyper awareness of your body translates to, oh, you turn your head and you notice that like, but my head feels weird. Like, what's up with the carriage of my head? Is my head too big?
That's so cool
Right?
that you're explaining it like it makes sense now, but
Yeah.
obviously in that moment, like I remember we were on I was in the thick of it. I still haven't figured out what was going. Oh, I just started watching your videos. I remember now it was because it's the onset of this was in April of 2024. And then in June, I kind of discovered your content and I started like reading up about it a bit more and understanding what I was going through. And then we were at the Kruger National Park, which is the. Do you know what the Kruger No.
Yes, I do. I actually do know Kruger National Park. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I
Love
never
it.
been, but I'm aware of it. Like, yeah, it's like the
Sean,
huge
I
famous
like you
national.
so much now. Yeah, I like you. That's good. I'm happy that you know of the Kruger National Park. But so we were at the Kruger National Park and we went on a sunset drive. So for those who don't know what the Kruger is, it's uh um what the heck is this word in English? Voltane. You
Oh,
won't know.
but
No, don't try. You're not gonna get it.
we're doing we're giving you a chance. Like, I know
Okay, if I
it's
directly
but
translate it, it's
but
called.
go ahead. Go
It's
on.
like if I directly translate it, and this is completely wrong. Please don't use this. It's not the wrong word, but it's directly translated as the wild garden.
Ah, so like Velt, like VLDT, right?
Ja, soos die veld, ja.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
like the sorry, I started speaking up. Yes, like veld.
Right. Okay. So it's like it's a national park, right?
Yes, with wild animals in it. I'm alright.
Right, right. Yeah,
That's
yeah. That's
so
a
uncomplicated. I made it so complicated, unnecessarily complicated now. So
it's a
yes.
second language. Don't worry about it.
And I feel my English is keeping up quite well. I'm very proud of myself.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
So basically, we were going on a sunset drive, and um, it was in the night, in the evening, and we're sitting on, like that safari truck thingies where you
Yeah,
can like you watch
the Jeep,
out and
like yeah.
yeah, 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 like that. And you'd have like a flashlight and you could see the wild. And we stumble across a whole pack of lions, like 7 or 8 of them. And they are just like roaming around here with us. Like that's very unusual. Like that's if you see that, you can consider yourself lucky because that doesn't happen very often. And I couldn't care less about the lions because I was like, my throat feels weird. This is so scary. Meanwhile, there's actual dangerous animals on the outside, like lions roaming around the jeep and whatever. And I wasn't even scared of that because I'm like, yo, my throat, I'm swallowing, and there's something wrong with my throat, and I can't see, and I couldn't even care less about the lions because I was so hyper focused on my heart rate and my head being big. And oh, it was just like, it's just crazy to think that your brain literally goes into such a strong fight or flight mode that actual things that you should go into fight or flight for then just you don't even, I'm like, no, that's fine, the lions can roam around, it's fine, I don't care what's happening with my eyes, tell me what's happening with my eyes. Yeah.
That is so yeah, that's a really, really good example. You're you're actually in a situation where this fight or flight system is designed for, and where and I'm sure like people go on safari and they they're up close with a lion and they start freaking out. They're like, I can't take this because this like ancient evolutionary response kicks in and says like
Yeah,
you
lion.
you can't be within 10 feet of a lion. But when you're going through something like DP and DR, it's like, okay, there's a lion, like, but what's wrong with my
The lions
eyes?
can wait.
It's my okay, yeah, lion. It's a rhino lion. What's wrong with my head?
Yes. Basically, 100% my train of thought.
Yeah.
Word, it's crazy. Like the house could burn down, and I'd be like, "Oh, shame the house is burning down." But you know what? I can't see, and that's the real problem. And but yeah, so no, I think it really makes like your train of thought is just all mumbled up when you go through something like that. But yeah, I remember that very well. I remember like the lions were there, and it was a whole. Obviously, you are safe. It's not like they're gonna come and attack you, but usually you get like a
Mm.
bit of a heartbeat and you're like, oh my
Of
goodness,
course.
there's lions.
As somebody who's working in the medical field, and so you work in pharmaceuticals, so you have you have some medical training. Um, So when you were speaking to doctors, and I'm sure that they were speaking to you about the possibility of going on SSRIs or antidepressants, I'm interested to hear what your perspective on that was like as somebody who actually knows this stuff inside out and is trained in it. So what was that like for you?
Yes. So I think it was both a blessing and a curse at the same time because I'm so especially with central nervous system drugs. So any antipsychotics, antidepressants, and benzodiazepines, which is like Valium, and I'll name like some of the trade names which will make more sense. I think I know some of the states names and so forth. But I I don't know, with medication I've never been opposed to treatment, but I'm very wary of or very specific with what I allow in my body because I know what is in the stuff so well. So, for instance, with anxiety, my first instinct was just I told the doctor I really don't want to use any benzos or benzodiazepines, which is like Valium, diazepam, lorazepam, um, things like that, because it is highly addictive. And yes, 100% in certain instances, it's fine if you're getting a panic attack right now and you really can't breathe and it's so severe that you need to take something that's fast acting like diazepam, then it's fine. I understand. But the problem it comes when you need to whenever you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh my goodness, I can't cope, I can't breathe, I need to take one. Then you get so dependent on it so fast. And I didn't want that at all. And so I know I have been on Lexapro for I think like a year or two, um, during another difficult time in my life where I was dealing with a bit of anxiety and depression, but not like in a sense that I was getting panic attacks or anything like that. It was just circumstances. And I remember I didn't have a bad experience going on that. And I felt very guilty and ashamed of going on any medication because I felt like, oh my goodness, you need to be able to cope with life. And I think that was also something that I had to really work through to not feel so guilty when needing sometimes to take medication, even though I don't think it's just like the one thing about medication is, especially with antidepressants and things like that, it's not going to cure you. So it's maybe going to help you for the time that you're going through a season or going through something. But it's not going to cure you like an antibiotic is going to do when you have like a bacteria or so. That is something that you can use for a certain amount of time, but you need to do it in combination with different things like therapy and changing your lifestyle, working through things. So, in short, to answer your question, I told the doctor or asked the doctor, I'm fine if I need to go on an SSRI like Zoloft, I think that they call it in the States, or Lexapro, because I know it is quite a very common first line treatment for anxiety conditions because it is an SSRI, which is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So it mainly works on your serotonin levels and not on your noradrenaline and your dopamine levels, which is the other two things that they also, where other medications kind of also work on with like antidepressants and so I wanted to either take sertraline or escitalopram, which is the active ingredients in Zoloft and Lexapro. And I said, I don't want anything else. Don't, I know even if I remember this one doctor tried to give me Esperide, which is sulpride. I think that I don't actually know the usage of it so well, but it's actually something that they give. It's more like a mood stabilizer, like for someone with like bipolar disorder. But sometimes off label, the psychiatrists like to give you some funky stuff. Like they will give you fluanxol, which is like an antipsychotic actually, for treatment of anxiety off label. But I'm so scared of going into too many medications because I think if you go to one doctor, this one doctor says, oh, this is going to work. You start taking it, and then 2 months later, you don't feel better, which is normal because medication takes very long to work. Like if you're going to go on an SSRI, or it's not going to be better in like a day or two. It's going to take 2, 3 months sometimes, or maybe 2 weeks. It depends on your body and on your body and your metabolism. But now the problem comes in. You go to one doctor, they put you on an SSRI. Then you're like, no, but I don't feel better. I need to go to another doctor. Go to another doctor. They're like, oh, okay, so you're using this, you're not feeling better. So let's put you on Urbanol as well. Urbanol is clobazam. I don't know if you guys actually use it so much in other countries. So that's like they actually also give it for epilepsy patients that get very bad seizures. But clobazam is a less addictive type of benzodiazepine. Benzo, I'm feeling like I'm saying lots of words now. My brain, I can't believe I remembered all of the English words. Um, but yeah, it's basically like it's sort of like Valium, but it's not as addictive because it's a bit longer acting. It's not as short acting, so it releases slower. Um, yeah, I don't even, but anyway, so they will just stack you up and stack you up and stack you up, where you then start getting side effects from this thing. Now you're getting a side effect from this thing, so you need to take that thing to now help with this side effect, but now you're getting side effects from this medication. So now you're going to have to take another thing to help with the side effects from this thing. And it's just, I think the less the better. Um, in a situation like anxiety, obviously I'm not a doctor, so this is not my not this is a bit of my professional advice, but also personal experience advice. So I think if you can cope with fewer medication and not stack yourself up with loads and loads and loads of stuff, it's good for your brain to maybe just have one thing at a time, get used to something, try to work through it, go to a therapist if it's necessary, do cognitive behavioral therapy for anxiety. I know that they like to do that in South Africa. So I think to maybe not just look at medication to solve a problem, because it's not going to solve a problem. It's maybe going to help you get through something, which in my case, it really, really, really did. It made such a big difference, especially with my anxiety symptoms like the heart rate, the heart racing, and um, yeah, just not getting. I haven't gotten a panic attack in a year now, so that's amazing for me. It's actually been exactly a year now in April. Um, so it definitely helped with that, but also it's very patient specific. Like what works for me isn't going to work for you. So yeah, I think that's kind of my stance on medication. Like don't be scared to take something if it's needed, but also don't be too excited to take too many things, because that also can sometimes be a bad thing. To then eventually, if you do feel better, you need to taper off some things. And then that you also get like some side effects from leaving the medication or stopping the medication. So I think don't be scared when you are talking to your doctor to go on therapy or like medicinal therapy, but also don't over stack yourself with medicine. It's not gonna help you. Or that's what I think. That's my opinion.
I often speak to people in my coaching sessions who that ask about medication, but they'll say, I don't want to do it. They'd be like, medication, it feels like, and I think it felt like that to me as well. I was like, I should be able to do this myself. Do I really need to put an extra chemical into my body to be able to get rid of this? Like, it almost felt like I was overcomplicating it to do that. But what I always say to people is that, like, you have a toolkit of tools available to you to recover. All these different techniques that are based on exposure therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, just understanding the condition. One of the tools you have available to you is medication. Medication works. It works for people, Now it works better and or more and less effectively for different people, and different
Yes.
types of medication affect people in different ways. There's obviously the importance of tapering, especially with coming off it, and also the awareness of side effects. You also need to be patient with it, as you said yourself. It can take a while for it to happen, for it to take effect. And also, your anxiety can actually increase when you first start taking it, right?
Yeah, so bad, so bad.
Yeah. But if you know all of that going into it, it can be a helping hand. It's best not to think of it as like, so, because the mistake people make is they say, well, I'll try this medication and I'll see if this fixes me. I'll see if I take this, and I'll see if I wake up in a month's time and it'll be gone. And it's like, that's not how this works.
Mhm.
It can reduce the symptoms to help you to make the changes to recover, but it is just ultimately a helping hand. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I just wanted to ask as well, Anka. So what was your lowest point in the whole experience? Is there a moment or a time that sticks with you?
It feels like every day was my lowest point, to be honest. But I do remember when I was driving, we were still planning our wedding, and I was driving from my husband. Well, at the time we were still just engaged, and he was living in basically like 1,500 kilometers from where I was living. So I had to fly, and we only saw each other like once a month. And I also, from the nearest airport from where I stayed, was in Cape Town. And that was like a 2.5 hours drive. So, and he also stayed like 2.5 hours from the airport on that side. So it was a lot of effort to see each other. And I remember I was going through everything, and my flight got cancelled or delayed, or I can't remember. And I remember sitting there in the airport on the airplane when we eventually went, and I'm like, I can't go on like this. And then it was already past 6 months in, and I was so positive and hopeful that all of the symptoms would go away after 6 months at least. Um, and which felt like a lifetime for me. And I remember I was crying. They were asking me if I'm okay. I didn't even care who saw me. I was full blown crying. And I just remembered that like I can't go on like this. I don't know if it's gonna get any better. And everyone's saying that they've recovered, but I'm not getting any better. And it's just I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't see how my life is gonna be any beautiful if it goes on like this. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry you went through that. Like, when you're in it and you can't see a way out, and you also can't even imagine what it would be like to be out of it. You can't remember what it felt like to not feel like this. And it just feels like it's everywhere, and it's always been everywhere, and you'll never get out of it. And that is crushing when you're in it. But, it's important to remember this. That's just the nature of human psychology, is that when you're in any given state, it feels very difficult to imagine not being in it. So when you're feeling happy and excited,
You
it's
don't remember
all
how it feels to not be happy and excited. Yeah.
if someone said if you're feeling happy and excited, and someone says to you, like, I want you to imagine what it's like to feel depressed and anxious, it's impossible. It's impossible. Like, you can maybe get a flash of it like this, but it's almost like it's like a different language. It's a different branch of mathematics. It's like you can't access it with the language that you have. And when you're in it, it feels like it's the only thing that you can access. But the beauty of recovery is that we train ourselves out of one and into another, and it works every time. But you do have to kind of have a bit of faith and trust in it for it to happen in the same way that if you go to the gym, you don't like lift a weight like 5 times and go like, oh, it's not working. You know,
Mm.
you have to you're changing
Takes
your s-
time.
your state from one position to another, and it takes a bit of time. It takes a bit of training, but you start to see these small incremental changes build up over time. Which brings me to my next question, Anka. How did your recovery start, and what did it feel like when you started to notice these positive changes?
So my recovery felt like it took forever. And I remember there was actually this one video on your channel where a guy, I think he had it for like 5 months or 6 months. And at that point, I was already stuck in it that was around in August. So how many months is April to August? That's almost like what, 6 months? April, May, June, July, August, 5 months, 6 months. Yeah. And I remember I wasn't feeling any better. And I was like, what am I gonna do? And when I actually started feeling better, wasn't even up until maybe the 1 year mark. Actually now a year ago now, more or less. When I started being like, oh, okay, I started enjoying small things again. Yo, wait, maybe let's say the December of that year. So it started in April, and then every single day was just the worst day of my life. Then I had to move across the country. And then when I settled in my new home and everything started being a bit more structured, when I started working again, that really made a difference because I didn't have all of this time that could sit at home and think about everything that's wrong with me. And I knew that because I watched your videos and your audiobook and everything. So I knew I had to go to work. I had to start, like, try to go back to life as normal as possible, even though it's felt impossible. That was one of the biggest things that I did to help me actually recover was just to go back to work. Try to go back to your life. Even I cried at work maybe 3 times a day, but I'd go to the bathroom, I'd cry. I would calm myself down. I had a very good friend that I made, luckily. Her name is Kelsey. She also understood everything that I was going through. So she never, I think having someone that just understood, didn't ask too many questions, and going back to work, having a routine, um, I think that definitely was where I started feeling better. And then I got married in February, where I still did it. I was still kind of in a bit of a DPDR state, which was sad, but I mean, it is what it is. And I remember once my husband eventually moved to where I was living. He moved to the Western Cape side, I then it really started feeling better because I had a support network at home. I wasn't alone. I We started getting a very good routine. We were training for a marathon. So I did a lot of physical activities. I went running every single day, every single weekend. We did some long runs, so I got some sunlight. Even though most of the times I wanted to cry whenever I went outside because remember the sky is very big. So I just started doing a lot of things outside, but still cried. Some days it felt like I made no progress. I was like, nope, nothing changed. Everything's still the same. But then 2 weeks later, I'll be like, oh, okay, actually, I do feel a bit better. And I remember I started feeling a bit lighter, like physically, I felt like there wasn't this uh, pressure on my chest about I'd say like August of last year, 2025. And then I have to say, really, I can't remember because I was thinking about, am I recovering? Am I recovering the whole time? And then there came a point where I didn't really thought about it anymore. I just went on with my life where I used to go from going on ChatGPT and like asking, is DPDR forever? And listening to your things like maybe 5 times a day to 3 times a day, to twice a day, to once a day. And then eventually I'm now at a point where I can't remember when was the last time that I had to go on Reddit to read some things. And that's also very important to stop. I stopped reading, watching all of your YouTube videos, even though it was like a source of comfort for me. I had to stop doing it because I was constantly reminding myself, okay, you're struggling with this, you're struggling with this, where I decided to just go to work, do some training, go out with friends, try to make it go on with life as normal as I possibly could, even though it felt like I couldn't. I just did. And I thought that there was going to be like one day I wake up, I feel better, and I'm like, oh my word, life is back to normal. But that never happened. I can't even remember when it just got better. It just happened naturally, without me even thinking if I am recovering or not. I just did. So, yeah, I think in long, that's what happened.
Yeah. It's really just this gradual process that happens in the background while you were doing other things. It's because you stopped trying to fix it in the moment.
Mm.
And in fact, it was because you were trying to fix it in the moment and trying to wake up tomorrow with it gone and checking to see that that's what was inadvertently keeping it going. Um, yeah, absolutely. Um, Anka, how was the DP manual helpful in your recovery?
Um, Honestly, I listened to it in 2024 quite a lot, so I don't remember exactly all of the different chapters and what specifically stood out for me because everything in that season of my life, I feel like I can't really remember how it happened. But I just remember that the way that you say to go back to your life as normal as you possibly could. Were some things that you said, and I think it was like a chapter or something more towards the end of the audiobook that really helped me to just change my mindset about um, understanding what I'm going through. Like, it's fine that I'm going through something that like DPNDR, but it's not forever. You're gonna recover. It is possible. And knowing that, I think that's also like one of the most important things that helped me was watching a lot of your content of people who did recover after how many years, or if it were months or years or whatever, that really helps. And like you were stuck in a state of DPDR for like 2 years, and knowing that you went through it exactly kind of the way that I went through it, really gave me a lot of hope. And yeah, that helped me a lot with my recovery, knowing that it was possible to recover, even though, trust me, I told myself it wasn't. I told myself I'm that one special person that's not going to recover. But um, you were right. You were right. You were right, Sean. You can have it. You were right.
I can have it.
I was wrong. You were right.
I told you. I told you,
You
Anka. You didn't
didn't.
listen.
I didn't listen, and you were right.
that's that's like basically like I'm gonna change the banner on my YouTube channel to like I told
I'm
you.
right.
I told
You're
you.
wrong.
um so a question that people always ask me I'm sure you've seen it on the channel before, is when you recover from DPDR, can you really get back to normal?
Yes. Like you because I'm not scared of it anymore. And I think when you take that fear away or your brain starts processing, oh, okay, you don't have to be scared. This is anxiety. It's going to be fine. I don't remember. Like now when you asked, um, what was my lowest point and everything, like it's almost like I can't remember. I remember because I remember what it felt like in my heart a bit, but I don't remember why it was so serious for me, even though it really was, but it's like I can't really remember how it felt because everything kind of went back to normal now, even though I still get like some spontaneous moments of a bit of derealization. I'm like, oh, hey, then you just brush it off. And where in the past, I would like go in a full blown spiral about it. But now it's like, oh, okay, it's actually fine. It's just like me being a bit anxious, and I'm like, brain, you need to calm down. Everything's fine. You're happy now. Don't be stressed. So yeah, but yeah, we ran a marathon, my husband and I ran a whole marathon last year in November. I finished that, and to think I went from a point where I couldn't walk outside because I was so anxious about the outside, which is so stupid. But I ran a marathon, didn't even think about the sky being too big even once. We actually this weekend we're gonna run the Two Oceans Half Marathon, which is in Cape Town. And I think like in the past that would like freak me out. Where now I'm like, what? It's just another thing. Not even thinking. I don't know. You just go on with your life as normal. It's just normal. I don't know
Mm.
how to explain it. It's just normal.
It's just normal.
Mm.
We think that when we're in it, we think that how do I get back to normal? And when you get back to normal, you realize that the only difference is that no, you're not constantly questioning how we get back to normal. There's
Yeah, you're
nothing
not
wrong with it.
fixated on it anymore.
Right. I always think like I can remember what it felt like, or at least I remember it happening. I remember being unable to eat. I remember not being able to like look in the mirror, but I can't relate to it anymore.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Um,
Mm.
so it's just like I don't know. It's like describing being like a teenager or something. It's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
remember how I was as a teenager. I was an absolute idiot, like, but but like I remember
Really?
that
I can't say that you
I
were an
was
idiot,
I
Sean.
was
No way.
you I was
I
insufferably.
think not.
Oh
Was it
my
that
god.
bad? I highly doubt it. Highly
It
doubt it. I mean,
was
look how smart you are now. You have like your own
no,
business and
no. I've I had to put significant improvements in place. Like I can remember that part of my life, but like I just can't relate to it. In terms of the DPDR, it's because at that time in my life, my levels of anxiety went up to 10 out of 10, stayed there for longer than they should, and then it came
mm,
back down. So it's like if if you're trying to think of yourself in terms of, well, I there's one state of mind where my thoughts are racing super fast. I've got a sense of disconnection. I can't focus on anything. My heart's racing. My muscles are tense. I've got tension headaches. I can't sleep. I can't eat. And then the volume on that anxiety gets turned down and all the symptoms fade away. And like a month later, you feel like you're completely back to normal.
mm,
But to compare one state to another, it feels like kind of, well, that's a completely different person. And it's like, no, I'm exactly the same. It's just that my fight or flight response is now gone, or at least it's back to where it should be. I mean, if I need it in the future, it's there. If the if the Jeep breaks down on Safari, then
at
then in
least
that
it's gonna
case,
be there.
yeah,
I tested it out for long enough to know it works
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. You go
too
back on
well. It
Safari.
works too well in some cases, eh? But
It works too well. It works when it's not supposed to be there. But that's it. This is the thing, is that like when you understand that and you internalize it, you can really let it go, and you can give yourself the grace, as you said earlier, the grace to just say, okay, that was a wild thing I went through, but I get it. I can see why it happened. I can understand all these symptoms. And not only do I have that experience and that intimate familiarity with anxiety under my belt now forever, and I'll always have that strength going forward, but I also now can relate in much more strong, in a much better capacity to people who are going through this or through anything similar, like depression or any anxiety based condition. You know, you have an ability to communicate with those people, and even and in your field as well, as a pharmacist, like, you know, you'll encounter people who are going through things like this, and you'll be able to speak to them in a way that will benefit them maybe even more than you know.
Yeah, and I think when you personally go through something and you tell if someone comes to me and say they're struggling with anxiety, then I think the just maybe the bit of communication that I give to them will carry so much more substance because I also went through something like that. So it just makes it more, I don't know. I don't want to say effective, but I think it just carries a lot more weight because I really understand. And I think a very big thing for me is I was so ashamed and I felt so guilty for struggling with something like anxiety because my personality is very like I'm very bubbly. I'm very outgoing, extroverted, and then I started struggling with something that's felt for me like something that's not really part of who I am. But it can happen to anyone, and I um I have so much more grace to anyone who goes through any anxiety based condition. And I know we studied about it a lot, and I know what medications people take, but now I really understand it. And yeah, I think I can really I know that I didn't really want to share the story because I felt so stupid about going through it, but it's actually so normal to go through things like this in life. And um I think because it was so specific for me, like this one specific side effect of anxiety that made no sense, I think it's nice to then no, okay, other people are also going through it. So it's not the most common one. So I think there's not a lot of awareness, like, let's say with like social anxiety, it's kind of obvious to know or to, I don't want to say to diagnose yourself, but to say, oh, okay, oh, I know I struggle with social anxiety, but with this DPDR thing, it was like, what the heck is this? So it helps a lot to personally know what it feels like and what like if anyone I know like I used to read all of the comments on YouTube like on your videos and I would grab onto them because I just needed like that instant relief of like knowing someone's going through the same thing. Um, but yeah, I understand now that it's in that moment. I understand it's maybe necessary like one or two times, but it really does get better. It really, really, really does get better. So that's yeah, I think that's so nice and reassuring that I can personally tell you from my experience. I went through it. I'm in South Africa, so there's like there's not even a lot of okay, no, there are a lot of people in South Africa, but like I feel like anxiety in South Africa isn't really something that's so talked about. Like I feel in the US or in the States, it's like very people are very open talking about different things, where here it's not really the case. So I was very hesitant to share my story, but I know how much other people's stories helped me. And I'm like, okay, if maybe it can even just help one person get a little bit of hope, then it's totally worth it to maybe just put my own ego aside and share my story. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm thrilled that you've done so, and I know people will find extremely beneficial. Um, and yeah, the awareness that we have, the understanding that we get from going through it, is something that benefits us for the rest of our lives. And also, and just it's worth mentioning as well because you had said that, you know, you have still have moments from time to time where you have little moments of anxiety and even sometimes like brief moments of DDR. And the thing is that, like, it's so important to remember that most people do. Like, this
Mhm.
is perfectly normal. In the same way that, like, you know, most people will from time to time experience heart palpitations. It's like, yeah, that's that you'll experience muscle tension. You'll have moments where you're feeling stressed out. and you have these brief moments of anxiety manifesting into different symptoms. It is normal. It is perfectly commonplace. It would be extremely unusual if you didn't experience these from time to time. But the difference is that once you've gone through an anxiety-based condition, which is essentially these symptoms persisting for way longer than they're supposed to. But when you go through that and you understand it, it gives you a perspective on it and understanding of it that prevents it from ever becoming an issue again. So
Mm.
um, stress is normal. It's part of what helps us to grow as human beings. Um, but we don't need to have this fire alarm going off as as if there's as if the Jeep has permanently broke down in Kruger National Park. You don't need that. You don't need that.
No.
It's not necessary. No, no. Um, I got one more question for you, Anka. There's going to be people watching the interview who may be going through something very, very similar to what you went through. Similar circumstances, similar life experiences, same age, etc. Um, what advice would you have for those people, speaking to them directly?
I don't want to sound cliche and say you need to embrace it, but um, you kind of need to brace yourself because it is maybe not going to go away in a month or a week or 2 weeks, or don't put a timeline on your recovery process, because I think that's also what really hindered me. I was thinking like, okay, if a month is over, then I want to feel better. And then I didn't, and then I would feel worse because now I don't feel better. So give yourself time. It really is going to get better. Go back to your normal life as much as you possibly can. I'm not saying everything's going to be perfect, because trust me, I struggle to. I had to work an 8 to 5 job every single day, and I would cry most of the time. But just going back to yourself and showing your body and showing your mind, oh, you are safe in your routine. Everything's working out. It's not nothing to be scared about. Don't be scared. Stop Googling all of your symptoms. That's like also one of the biggest things. Stop Googling and going on Reddit, reading all of the comments there, and just try to get a good support network. If you don't have one, I think maybe talking to someone like Sean, who understands what you're going through, booking sessions with him is very helpful. And get some vitamin D, go outside, uh, and yeah, I don't know, just try to go on with your life as much as you possibly can, no matter how hard it feels. I promise it's is better for you than just sitting at home. Trust me, I know. I sat at home. I watched, what is that, Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders on Netflix. I watched everything. It's better to just go outside. Oh, yeah.
I haven't seen that, but I'm gonna watch it.
Okay, but it is like a very girly thing. So obviously I would have watched it, but it's just nice. You're into like
I'll I'll give it a go.
videography and stuff, and
Yeah.
film stuff. So for the film aspects, not like for me, I watch it because they look cute and their hair is nice and spray tans and makeup. But you can watch it like for research.
I go.
For
I'll
film.
watch it. I'll watch it for artistic purposes.
Yes. For some
Can be
inspiration.
for inspiration. Exactly. Exactly. Anka, I've enjoyed speaking to you so much. Thank you for being on the channel and for sharing your story so candidly. There's going to be people watching this who I know will find this extremely inspirational and helpful. And yeah, it's been absolutely lovely to chat with you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Sean. Thanks for having me. Can't believe I'm actually the one that did this video. So it's great. Thank you for you. Thank,
Ah,
thank you for you.
oh,
Thank you.
how lovely.
Thank you for you.
Thank,
I think I need
thank,
to stop speaking now. My English is
no, no,
running out.
I'll take it. I'll take it. Thanks so much, Anka. Mind yourself. All the best. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.